بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي الله أشهد وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله هيا على السلام هيا على السلام هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اجعل جبارا ولسانا وشكارا ورزقا وأولاد أبرارا وجعل عند قبر نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم مستقرا مقررا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على
أعوذ بالله الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبله في الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم كما قال عز شأن كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه معاصي العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يراه ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يراه نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين من ركب سفينته النجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهو أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى حبل المتين وقاف الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحيم عبس وتولى جاء وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفع الذكرى صلى الله محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I begin by advising myself and all of you to adopt the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. The verse that I recited for today's khutbah are from chapter number 80 from Quran. Surah Abasa wa Tawalla is the beginning ayah says, ayat number 1 through 4. But in fact, the first 10 ayat are pretty much related, and as far as the concept which is being discussed is in these first 10 ayat. Translation is that he frowned and turned away when the blind man approached him. And how do you know? Maybe he would purify himself. So take admonition, and the admonition would benefit him. The reason I chose this ayat for today's discussion is that today also marks the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. December 3rd in 1992 by UN declared to be a day to recognize the rights and the well-being and create an awareness regarding those who are either born with disabilities or have later were afflicted with disabilities. Therefore, today, the world population is over 7 billion people, and more than 1 billion people, or approximately 15% of the world's population, live with some form of disability. That means 80% live in these developing countries are of those who are disabled. Disability or defect in an organ is not a sign of defect in personality. And therefore, respect for the blind and other disabled with disabilities is necessary. There are many ayat in Quran that address and lead us to understand this concept. Of course, it's something which is in our senses now, and with the awareness that has been created about it for the past 30 years, the more the awareness, the more it becomes a norm for us to logically look at the problem and see and think that it is something that we should be kind to and respectful towards and show dignity and honor. Prior to that, when there was lack of awareness, people would treat people differently. And that indifference was the reason why, and I'll share some, truth from the history, the facts from the history as to how this was dealt prior to Islam, and even throughout the time when Islam had mentioned laws, regulations regarding people who are born with disabilities, or whether when it's concerning their, practices of their, performance of some of the af'al and actions and amal, or whether it has to do with certain things that they should not be taking part in. For example, in the time of war and battles, they're exempt from taking part in it. And many such laws are mentioned under these ayat of Quran that I will share with you. Tafsir regarding this ayat, Surah Abasa, first 4 ayat that I recited. Abasa wa tawalla, that he frowned and he turned away. And ja'ahul ama, when a blind man came to him. Tafsir Jalalain, one of the famous Sunni tafsir, mentions the following. He said, Prophet became frowned upon seeing a blind man walk up to him in masjid while he was busy with the leaders of Quraysh, inviting them towards the religion of Islam, such as Abu Jahl and Utbah and so on and so forth. So imagine Rasulullah is sitting in a masjid, or this is before the migration, so maybe Masjid-e-Ali, and he's sitting with the heads of Quraysh, and he's teaching them or inviting them towards Islam, telling them about the reason why Islam should be chosen and whatnot. There walks in a blind man, and he turns up to Rasulullah, and he says, Allimni ma allamak Allah. Teach me what Allah has taught you. Now he's blind, he can't see what's going on. That is Prophet busy with people discussing something important? Is Prophet praying his own salat? Is Prophet doing something else? Or he's just sitting there taking questions? There's no idea, he's blind. So he walks up and he says this, Allimni ma allamak Allah. Teach me what Allah has taught you. And so Tafsir Jalalain writes the following. Rasulullah abasa wa tawalla. His face became frowned because this man intruded into what Prophet was carrying out, a very important conversation with Quraysh. And he was busy introducing them to the religion while this blind man walks up, not knowing what's going on, and interferes. You and I do this all the time. Unfortunately, this defect exists in us as humans, that we are doing something, we're busy with something, and someone interferes in what we like to do our way, for example. We might become frustrated, we might become frown, and we might, treat differently. But this is us. It's human nature. We would do this. But Rasulullah, out of all the people in the world, you imagine him to treat people like this? Tafsir Jalalain mentions that way. He says, this man came up and he says, Allimni ma allamak Allah. Rasulullah became frowned, made a face, turned away, not responding to this man. And then Rasulullah went home. When he went home, he was scolded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The riwayah says, فَعُوتِبَ فِي ذَلِكَ بِمَا نَزَلَ فِي هَذِهِ السُّورَةِ. Rasulullah was scolded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Itab is not azab, but it's itab. किसी पे बरसना, किसी पे स्कोर करना, किसी को डांटना, डपटना. فعوتب في ذلك بما نزل في هذه السورة فكان بعد ذلك يقول له إذا جاء. And after this, when Rasulullah was scolded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this ayat was sent down, Abasa wa Tawalla. Every time Rasulullah saw this man, whose name, by the way, in the books of Tafasir is mentioned as Abdullah ibn Maktoum. Every time Rasulullah would see this man, Rasulullah would say to him, Marhaba biman aatabani fihi Rabbi. Welcome the one for whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scolded me and showed me the right path. And then وَيَبْسُطُ لَهُ رَدَاهُ. And Rasulullah would go ahead and spread his rada, his abba for him, so that, showing extra respect to him. Now, of course, this is from the difference of understanding of schools regarding the stature of Rasulullah, that out of all the people in the world, Rasulullah would treat a blind man like this. Today, with all the awareness that has been created regarding disabled people, you and I would not do such a thing. If we saw something like this happening, we would scold that person. And yet in the history, it has been mentioned that someone who's referred to in Quran as إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, the one who's been sent to mankind as the greatest standard bearer of morality and akhlaq, would go ahead and treat an individual who's blind with disability like this. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So sixth Imam in this regards narrates the following. Tafsir Mizan mentions this hadith. He said this was revealed for a man from Umayyad who frowned upon seeing this blind man. And some allude to that it may have been the third caliph. And Sayyid Murtada in his Mutashabih Quran condemns these narrations in the books of Ahl Sunnah, referencing them with the verses of Quran which I recited for you. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Quran on one instance saying to Rasulullah that you are at the highest standard of morality. And on the other occasion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is scolding Rasulullah for frowning, overlooking when a person who's blind comes to ask him a question. On the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Rasulullah, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاهَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Show mercy and kindness to those who follow you, those who come to your path. A value, or the value of akhlaq, is for self-perfection. Why do I portray and display the best of the akhlaq? If I'm displaying my good akhlaq in front of you, either it could be for my self-perfection, or it could be for show-off. That my real face is something else. I'm just showing this to you, right? And you can easily tell. If you know a person, and if you've spent some time, you can easily tell this is not how this person is usually. He's just putting up this face right now because he's in the gathering of others. Usually the akhlaq of this person is pretty bad. Yeah, in front of others, people all become, very good, moral and ethical and all that stuff. So the value of akhlaq is for self-perfection. That should be the value of akhlaq. That we want to show akhlaq, good ethics, to show off to others? No. To go ahead and create the self-perfection in ourselves. That we continuously become perfect and tread on the path of perfection and prosperity. A blind man cannot see the frown face to get excited or feel bad. So this blind man comes. If I make a face, this blind man can't see it. So out of all the people that I would show bad akhlaq is to a blind man who can't even perceive and see my face expressions. Unless, of course, I utter something ridiculous from my mouth and make this man feel bad. I can't make him feel bad through my face expression. So Islam is against the arrogant mentality and humiliation of others. وَمَا يُدْرِكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَّكَّى. The following ayah says, how do you know? Maybe this person wants to purify himself. You cannot judge people based on their appearance or something which they are lacking. Sometimes blind can see better than those who's got eyes. And there are many examples of that as well. Moreover, this is from the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the perfect role model, who is the standard for all kind of morality. In fact, in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Holy Prophet, "Law kunta," if you were, you aren't. "Law kunta faddan ghalidh al-qalb lan faddu min hawlik." If you were stern-hearted, and if you were very difficult in dealing with people, lan faddu min hawlik, they would have left you a long time ago. The fact that they haven't left you, the fact that they're still around you, is due to your rahim and the compassion and the mercy that you are at. So Prophet's real attitude towards the disabled. Ibn Maktum was amongst the mu'azzineen of Rasulullah. This blind man with disability that he had, Rasulullah did not show any difference to him. In fact, gave him a status and more recognition in the community that made him to be what? The mu'azzin. It was a big deal to be the mu'azzin. Hazrat Bilal was mentioned to be the mu'azzin. You could argue that people used to make fun of Hazrat Bilal as well when he would say, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah." He couldn't pronounce sheen, lisping, right? He couldn't pronounce sheen properly. Instead of saying "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah," he would say "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah." People will say Rasulullah, and there are some derogatory words that are used, which I won't even quote here, that, "Oh Rasulullah, you couldn't find anyone better than this, who can't even pronounce sheen properly." Rasulullah said, "His sheen pronounced as seen is dearer to me than anyone reciting sheen as a sheen," because of the khulus and the sincerity that he possesses. So Abdullah ibn Maktum also became one of the mu'azzineen of Rasulullah. He was amongst the people who was sent to Yathrib prior to Hijrat, a blind man sent to Yathrib prior to Hijrat, so that he can go ahead and pave the path for Rasulullah's migration. Rasulullah then migrates to Medina. Prior to migrating to Medina, naming that city to be known as Yathrib, Rasulullah sent amongst men to go ahead and propagate and for Rasulullah. Prophet would designate him in charge of the affairs. Since whenever Rasulullah would go for the wars, and he would, of course, Amirul Mu'mineen would accompany him, and all the other ashab would accompany Rasulullah, he had to leave someone behind in charge. Rasulullah would make Ibn Maktum to be in. So his disability did not prevent him from rising to these different occasions and being the part and the parcel of the society. So Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this is the Islamic perspective of how now how Muslims treat disabled is one thing, but this is how Islam wants them to be treated and looked after. Now let's look at the ugly face of the history as to how they dealt with in need of compassion and constant. You choose which is the right way to people like this. In ancient Greece, they would drown disabled children. Deserve to live. Plato said they don't have a place in an ideal and dynamic society. All made by insan, but the system Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to. Only prophets and the righteous, especially in Islam, call and honor disabled, consider them same dignity as others. It is correct that a disabled might not have an, but still is a human, and for that one less organ that this person does not have, his other senses and talents become, and that is the hikmah behind it by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are lacking something which is physically shown, seen to you, and that means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given something more to them as far as their senses are concerned. There are many ayat in this regard. I'll just quote two to bring you to verse number 1. Surah Fath, ayat number 17 says, لَيْسَ عَلَى الْأَعْمَى حَرَجٌ وَعَلَى الْأَعْرَجِ حَرَجٌ وَعَلَى الْمَرِيضِ حَرَجٌ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يُدْخِلُهُ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. There's no blame on the blind, nor on the lame, nor on the sick if they do not go forth for fight. So these people were excused from taking part in the battlefield. Yes, it'll be very difficult for a person with some sort of disability to be taking part. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of hadith to come and go ahead and make this to be a law, Quranic ayat states that these people are exempt from taking part. And there's no blame on them as far as them attending it. In fact, there are people who are blamed in Quran for not taking part in the battles when Rasulullah would call upon them, citing reasons that, oh, Rasulullah, it's very far away. We don't want to walk all the way to Tabuk, 1,500 miles. Oh, Rasulullah, it's very hot weather. We don't want to go with you in this hot weather. Oh, Rasulullah, it's almost time for us to harvest all of our crops. And we delay by a couple of months so that we have already harvested and we have paid off and then made money, and then we come. All these different excuses were given. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distinguished between those people and these individuals. Or at another place in Surah Hujurat says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa an yakunu khayran minhum. Believers, let not a group of people mock another. Usually the mocking takes place when you find these people with disabilities and others showing this sort of attitude toward them. Perhaps they are better than you. Why are you mocking them? Perhaps they're better than you. Let not women mock one another. Perhaps one is better than the other. Let not one group find faults in another, nor let any one of you defame the other. With these ayat, and of course they require explanation, and I will trust inshallah in your understanding of going through them quickly. Disability, primarily speaking, and this day, December 3rd, is dedicated to them since 1992 by the UN, that the International Day for the People with Disabilities, recognizing, creating awareness within our own societies as well, in our own communities as well. If anything, with the creation of this awareness, you find more and more laws being placed in by Western countries than the Muslim countries. There's more taking care. These people are taking care more in the Western countries, places that we live and we see with our own eyes and we are witness to it, that every place you find their special treatment that is given to them, accommodation rather, not special treatment. Don't want them to feel special by any means. No, the accommodation for that, so that they don't feel left out, that I can't do this or I can't do this. Sports are created for sports within themselves. Olympics are created for, parking spaces are created for them, cars are created for them so that they live like a normal human being amongst team members. So disability of two types. One is the physical, is mental. Now, physical disability is something for which Quran talks about all of this, but that we find most sick people are not physically disabled, rather they are spiritually disabled. Why? And I'm not talking about spiritually disabled as mental illness or mental health. That is a total different story. It's spiritually ill because you'll find in them hasad, jealousy. You find in them asabiya, prejudice. You find in them ghadab, anger. You find in them nifaq, hypocrisy. These nafsiyati illnesses that exist, these spiritual illnesses and the mental illnesses that exist, which lead to them treating people of different disabilities differently and looking at them with mockery and ridiculing them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and ability under the guidance provided from Quran and the hadith of Masumeen alayhi salatu wasalam, that it gives us the ability to look at people the same way as the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that these sort of differences do not exist and we're able to coexist and we're able to play our part in showing compassion and love and extra attention toward people with disabilities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the whole awaited Imam in Ahsan Hadith. وأبلغ الموعظة كتاب الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم. سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة. سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وعفى عن السيئات ولم يجاز بها. سبحان من لا يزداد ولا معاصي العباد إلا كرمه وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا عفوا وصفا. نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو ولا تغفر العباد بجوده ولا بعض المظلمين بحلمه. ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفي المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين. لقد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال أن تعلم لكم تشريفا للصفي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Before I conclude with the names of the Aimma Athar, just very quickly a reminder that the cases of corona are on the rise again, as you all are aware. Of course, we are continuously watching the situation and we are taking all the precautions, all those things that were in place from the beginning of COVID. And when we relaxed some of these things in masjid, make sure that every time you come, mask is worn all the time on the premise. Social distancing is still intact. Only stand on this blue tape when you're performing the salat, and all of those other things that have been recommended all this time. Hopefully this wave will pass by, inshallah, and without too much damage, and inshallah when things as they were getting better and better will continue to progress. Also, another reminder that I want to explain, a lot of time, because we are not used to and accustomed to standing in namaz-e-jama'at and the congregational prayer. A lot of these mistakes emerge from lack of attendance, because we maybe spend once a week, we come to namaz-e-jama'at, or rarely do we take part in it. Then make sure that you stay behind the imam as far as your actions are concerned. In the salat, which is reciting bil jahr, out loud, you don't read anything, just listen to the qira'ah. And the salat, which is recited bil khifa, that means dhuhr and asr, where imam is reciting the surah softly, you just listen to the hamhama of imam if you can hear it. But if it's too far away and you can't hear, mic is not working, all you can do is recite subhanallah, subhanallah softly, so that even the person standing next to you does not hear your voice. And making sure that, when you're standing in Jamaat, already we are giving a distance of one person. If one person stands up, it breaks the tasalsul of Jamaat. So if there are two people missing from between, then of course this Jamaat will break for the person on their either sides. So make sure that you are, even if you're traveling from far distance where your salat is qasr, you still stand up and perform your qaza or something, so that the continuation of Jamaat remains intact. Someone asked a question regarding that, this is of course for individual prayer, not so much for congregational prayer. You don't have to worry about these things in namaz-e-jama'at, that if you forget something, or if you say something out of order or out of place, there are 4 or 5 occasions where you say something out of place, or you do something which is not supposed to be performed. For example, you tashahud in a wrong rak'at. Namaz does not become batil. At the end of namaz, all you have to do is perform 2 sajda-e-sahv. Sajda-e-sahv is the prostration for forgetfulness. Sahv is to forgetfulness. What you do is that after salat finishes, you say your salam, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Right after that, you just make the niyat that I perform 2 sajda-e-sahv, and you go into sajda. Number 1, sit back up, and then you go into the second sajda, sit back up, and you recite the tashahhud and salam. These are called 2 sajdatus sahv. That will compensate for that which has been missed or wrongfully uttered or misplaced in the namaz. which does not break your salah. So this is as far as the question was asked. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq to perform the ibadat in the best possible manner. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين وبطاطا خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء ولي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر ولي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البد والطغيان هادم ابنة الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم أجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وغلو في الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهل ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهل بجاه محمد عليه الطاهرين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please silence your phone. Thank you. Salatul Jummah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير ومن التجارة
خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي من حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله لا شريك له وأشهد محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا على محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على
محمد تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلاتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This week's Juma is sponsored by the family of please recite us the Fatiha for his deceased relatives and your deceased relatives. So the Fatiha. وصلاة محمد وآل محمد. So request to recite Dua Shafa for all of those people who are in need of dua, suffering, struggling, going through difficult times, physically, spiritually, mentally, financially. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all full recovery, especially Dua is set up for Brother Ali Waqif, who's critically ill and is in ICU. And also a dua for cancer patient Safiullah, son of Hafizullah, families requesting prayers for him as well. Let's recite this ayah in Bismillah ar-Rahman. أما يجيبون مضطر أما يجيبون مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيبون مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيبون مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. اللهم صل على. Once again, a reminder, I already mentioned it in the khutbah as well, that those of you who weren't here, again, the cases are on the rise and you got to be very vigilant and careful. Continue to practice all of those things that we've been implementing for the past almost now a couple of years. When you come to the masjid, the things that have been relaxed as far as the congregation is concerned, continue to not feeling well, avoid coming to the mosque, give a few days to yourself. Playing safe from that aspect as well. And just we're all adapted very good with this virus now, and we've learned to live with it now. By now, I'm sure. Practice basic, logical things and using common sense. Avoid shaking hands and hugging and all that stuff. And just practice precaution as this is again on the rise, and hopefully this will not be too detrimental as the previous waves were, and hopefully we will go through this as well, inshallah. I want you to, one more thing, save a date, December 24th, Christmas Eve, Friday night, inshallah, Masjid-e-Ali, and of course, Sadiq School will be hosting their annual tickets. Will selling the tickets, inshallah, in the next couple. And every year we have this one fundraising dinner. It will be on the Christmas Eve, December 24th, Friday night, starting at 6 p.m., which will include, motivational speaker. It'll have maybe poetry in it. It'll have some comedy in it as well. It has raffle tickets, exciting things for you to buy, and even some auction items from the tabarrukat, from Karbala and whatnot. So do take part in it. Save the day, December 24th, inshallah. Oh yeah. Tomorrow there will be Nisal Salat Majlis for the swim of Marhum Amir Abbas, who passed away yesterday, and we buried him yesterday. Family is requesting your presence tomorrow night after the namaz al-Maghrib, which is about 4:54, and around 5 o'clock, inshallah, we'll start the namaz, and following namaz, we will have the swim like this for the Marhum. So your participation will provide much, support to the solace to the bereaved family. Sallallahu Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد
وآل محمد. تسبيح. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاضع فقير بائس مسكين مستكين مستجير لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني تشفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن علم لا ينفع ومن صلاة لا ترفع ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر والفرج بعد الكرب. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
السلام عليكم يا رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا نبي الله، السلام عليكم يا حبيب الله، السلام عليكم يا خيرة الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا عبد الله، السلام عليكم يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليكم وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأبيك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليكم يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليكم يا شمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بعرض الطوس علي بن موسى ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليكم إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليكم يا خليفة الرحمن. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
فاتحة. تكبير. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد هذه رسالة
Glory, victory!